Tonight, right before you go to sleep, you are going to do something completely irrational. You're going to lie in the dark, pick up a glowing piece of glass and stare at it. Your thumb will slide across the screen, and you will watch a rapid-fire stream of faces, locations, meals, and arguments from people you barely know. You'll do this for 10 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe 2. And if you're like most people, you feel a little guilty about it. We are constantly told that this is a modern sickness, that social media is an alien parasite that broke our attention spans. We call it doom scrolling. We treat it like an addiction, a failure of personal discipline. But what if everything we've been told about this behavior is completely wrong? What if your brain isn't broken at all? What if, when you stare into that screen, your mind is actually executing a flawless 300,000-year-old survival program? To understand why you physically cannot look away from your feed, we have to travel back to the most dangerous environment in human history. And it's not what you think it is. Let's go back roughly 150,000 years. You were an early human living in the East African Rift. If you look at our ancestors, we shouldn't have survived. Compared to the predators around us, humans were physically pathetic. We didn't have thick skin, we didn't have venom, and our night vision was terrible. Out in the tall grass, a solitary human was just food. The only thing keeping you alive was the tribe. If you stayed inside the group, you survived. If you were cast out into the wilderness alone, you died. It was a mathematical certainty. But here is the part history books usually skip over. Staying inside the tribe was incredibly difficult. The group was not a peaceful family. It was a dangerous, constantly shifting web of politics. To survive, you didn't just need to know how to throw a spear. You needed to know who was angry at the leader. You needed to know who was hoarding food, who was secretly building alliances, and who was falling out of favor. If you missed a subtle shift in the social dynamic, you could find yourself on the outside. For our ancestors, social status wasn't a luxury, it was a life or death metric. But there was a problem. In the primate world, animals build trust and alliances through physical grooming. Monkeys spend hours picking lice out of each other's fur to say, "We are friends, I have your back." And for a long time, early humans did exactly this. But as human brains grew larger, our tribes grew bigger. We went from groups of 30 to groups of 150. Suddenly, physical grooming became a mathematical impossibility. There simply weren't enough hours in the day to pick the bugs out of 150 people's hair. If you tried, you would starve to death. The human species hit a wall. We needed a way to build trust and track the social status of hundreds of people at once without physically touching them. And that is when we invented the most powerful weapon on Earth. For decades, anthropologists assumed that complex human language evolved for noble, practical reasons. The theory was that we needed words to coordinate complex mammoth hunts or to teach our children how to carve intricate stone tools. But in the late 1990s, an evolutionary psychologist named Robin Dunbar proposed something that made the academic world deeply uncomfortable. He analyzed how human beings actually talked, and he realized something shocking. We didn't develop complex language to discuss the stars or invent tools. We developed language to gossip. We traded physical grooming for vocal grooming. Instead of picking lice off a friend, we shared a secret. Through gossip, you didn't have to witness a fight between two tribe members to know that their alliance was broken. Someone else could just tell you. It was a revolutionary survival tool. But Dunbar discovered something else hidden inside our biology, a hard limitation. By analyzing the size of the human neocortex, Dunbar realized there is a strict biological ceiling on how many people we can mentally manage. 150. That is the maximum number of stable relationships your brain is physically capable of tracking. We call it the Dunbar number. For 300,000 years, this wasn't a problem. There were rarely more than 150 people around you. Your brain was perfectly calibrated to your environment. But then, we built a machine that shattered that limit. When you open a social media app, you are suddenly exposed to thousands, even millions of people. And here is where the ancient system violently glitches. Your primal brain does not understand that the internet is global. When you look at a screen, your subconscious assumes everyone you are seeing lives in your immediate physical village. And that creates a terrifying psychological trap. In an ancient tribe of 150 people, it was relatively easy to be valuable. You might be the fastest runner, the best storyteller, or the one who knew which mushrooms were safe. Your status was secure. You belonged. But today, your 150-person brain is suddenly forced to compare your value against the most attractive, wealthy, and successful humans on the entire planet, all at once. Every time you scroll past a billionaire, a supermodel, or a teenage prodigy, your ancient circuitry does a threat assessment. It calculates their resources against yours, and the result is devastating. Because to your prehistoric brain, you haven't just seen an impressive stranger, you have suddenly plummeted to the absolute bottom of the local hierarchy. And dropping to the bottom of the hierarchy triggers a biological alarm. In 2003, a neuroscientist named Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran a study that completely changed our understanding of human survival. She put participants inside an fMRI scanner and had them play a virtual catch game with two strangers on a screen. After a few minutes, the other two players simply stopped throwing the ball. They excluded the participant. It was a meaningless game, but when Eisenberger looked at the brain scans, she was stunned. Being socially excluded didn't light up the sad parts of the brain. It lit up the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the exact same region of the brain that processes physical agony. To your nervous system, a broken reputation and a broken leg use the same neural circuitry. Why? Because 150,000 years ago, being perceived as low status meant you were going to be left behind to starve. Your brain uses intense, agonizing pain to force you to fix your social standing before the tribe abandons you. But the modern internet introduces one final, deeply unsettling trick. In the ancestral environment, if you spent hours looking at someone's face and listening to them talk, they were your closest ally. Your brain wired itself to care about them deeply. Today, you spend hours watching strangers on a screen. Content creators, celebrities, influencers, and your brain does exactly what it was programmed to do. It categorizes them as high-status members of your personal tribe. We call them parasocial relationships, but to your nervous system, the relationship is entirely real. This is why you feel genuine grief when a celebrity dies, or intense anxiety when an influencer gets canceled. Your survival instincts are screaming that a vital member of your village is in danger. You are biologically invested in the lives of phantoms. Which brings us back to the dark bedroom. Look at the glowing rectangle in your hand. What is an Instagram feed? What is a TikTok For You page? It is an infinite, hyper-concentrated stream of pure social data. It is a machine that tells you exactly who is doing well, who is mating, who has resources, and what behaviors the tribe is currently rewarding. Our ancestors spent a staggering amount of their waking hours desperately trying to acquire tiny fragmented pieces of this exact information. They would literally kill for it. And now you hold it in the palm of your hand. When you see a notification, your deep brain doesn't process it as lines of digital code. It processes it as a villager tapping you on the shoulder. When you post a picture into the digital void and receive silence, your body interprets it as the beginning of exile. We are not a broken species. We are not malfunctioning. The tech companies did not invent a new human desire. They found the single most powerful survival mechanism in human history, our desperate, terrifying need to know where we stand in the tribe, and they removed all the friction required to access it. You aren't staring at your screen because you're addicted to the glass. You are staring at it because your ancient brain is terrified of missing a social cue. Because missing a cue meant you woke up alone in the dark. They gave us a campfire that never burns out, surrounded by a tribe that never goes to sleep. And deep down, we are all just sitting in the dirt, terrified to look away, waiting for a response that will finally make us feel safe.